So this guy right here comes from my Gears Tactics playthrough. If you play Gears Tactics, you'll know that you can create, customize, and sort of build up your own soldiers. You collect people to help you along the game, and you can basically turn them into soldiers. You can have them with helmet, you can pick the armor they have. Each armor gives different stats, so depending on what kind of soldier you're wanting to build. Depends on what armor you want to give them, or whatever you think looks cool. This guy, he looks pretty similar to my Gears Tactics version. Trying to get as close as I can to my game version. The armor paint schedule, the armor paint style is completely different. This guy, his name is Tommy Mad Dog McKnight. In my Tactics game, his armor is black with white, faded white mesh pattern along sort of the whole armor. I probably could have done or tried to do that, but while making this guy, my paint skills were quite limited, and giving this guy just a lick of black paint and white outlining seemed a lot easier at the time. I might revisit him at some point, but it's basically Hoffman's body. I gave him a couple of extra packs on his back, waist, and the upper arms. This guy's backstory is he comes from a military family very similar to the Carmines. They've all served in the war. While the Pendulum Wars were going, he was a child, especially towards the end, and he was actually with his grandfather in a cabin sort of the middle of nowhere. And upon E-Day, they were still attacked, but due to the fact that they were way out in nowhere, they somewhat had an idea of what was going on. By the time it got to them, the Locusts ended up basically wiping out his entire family. He was the only one that survived. As a child, he was hiding. He witnessed his grandfather get beaten to death by the Locust. He witnessed his brother, get shot down and torn to pieces. So he has a somewhat of a hatred towards the Locust, like I'm sure a lot of the COG soldiers do. So he ends up spending a lot of his time focusing on not so much military styled missions, but he just wants to kill Locusts. That's all he wants to do. He doesn't have any on him, but the idea is that he's got the knife there, and I did put a knife on his forearm, but the idea is he wields sort of two machete style blades or swords. That's usually his weapon of choice to fight a squad of Locusts, inflicting the most pain and just being an absolute nutcase, hence the nickname Mad Dog. So he has a bit of a reputation about just being an absolute insane soldier. Just nothing is too much for him, as long as he can go out in a blaze of glory. That's all he cares about. The weapon he's holding isn't actually for him. Let's move him out of the way. It's actually for my Theron Elite figure. It's the bayonet double-barreled shotgun. This has been done by using a spare ram blade. The actual bayonet had sort of two blades coming this way and that way. But while making this, I didn't bother looking at any reference photos and thought it was just the one. At the time I hadn't played the DLC in some time, so I completely forgot that there was two blades, but it still looks pretty good with just the one. I've added some extra blood detail on there. Hopefully that comes up decent on camera. NECA did the Theron Elite figure, but they just didn't give us these, the gun, which made no sense. But yeah, it's not difficult to make. As well as Gilded Ram being my favourite, this guy is probably another favourite. Again, an extremely easy one to make. He's pretty much pure black. He was actually meant to be I think it was black 3.0 at the time, and it was meant to be sort of like really jet black, but it doesn't come out. It didn't come out as black as I thought it was gonna go into. I mean, it's still pretty black, not gonna lie, but I was kind of hoping it'd be darker. No, it's still pretty cool. So the idea of this guy is he's actually meant to be like a shadow Pharaon who lurks in the shadows. Kind of it's dusty, man. Yeah, kind of a horror story, or like a scary story that the Locusts share upon themselves about Locust soldiers that don't perform well, or he just comes out of the shadows and hunts them down. There's been horror stories from both Cogs and the Locusts sort of whispering about him. A lot of people just believe him to be a fairy tale, or a scary story. Whether he's actually real or not is still unknown. So it's one of those things of, do you believe in the boogeyman or not? And it's basically the Locust boogeyman. He has a blade on his forearm. I do believe the blade actually came from a Deadpool figure, which broke, so I decided to use the blade. And his staff, or it's his sort of weapon of choice, it's meant to be like a stone axe, kind of hammer axe kind of weapon. This is the very first thing that I moulded, so it looks like a fish, but like the idea of it being blunt kind of works with his brutality, where it's just blunt blades, if you like. The more times he's going to beat you with it. Obviously the skull, or a skull, just strapped on his spear or his staff. Yeah, so this was another fun one to make. His backstory's a bit more intricate than what I've just said. It probably sounds pretty naff, but yeah, the idea is, he's basically just a ghost story, and it's just whether or not you want to believe if he's real or not. He comes out of the shadows just out of nowhere and will stab you in the neck, beat you with his stick, or do whatever like boogeymen do. I do believe he has blood in his teeth, so maybe he takes a chunk out your neck or something. So this guy here is Captain Shaw. Another easy one to make. A Min body, I believe. Now I removed the arms, gave him wrestler arms. It's Triple H's head. Painted a scar on his face. It comes up pretty well. I mean, I think you can kind of tell it's there. I see some random markings on the armour. Whatever that is, just glued on, just to make him look a bit different. So in my youth, which was a long time ago now, I used to do a lot of writing, and I started to write some Gears fan fiction because I'm a nerd, and this guy is the main character from that fan fiction, which actually has Tommy McKnight. He's part of the fiction as well. There are more of them that I am hoping to create. I want to eventually turn that whole squad into customs, but it's just getting round to it. There's a long list of customs I'm wanting to do, I need to do, planning to do, so it's all about getting the parts and doing what I have time and parts to do. So in the fanfiction, Shaw is fighting in Ephyra when Marcus abandons his post to go save his dad, and this city is lost. Shaw and his squad, one of the many squads fighting, and due to this city ends up becoming getting overrun, and his squad ends up getting wiped out. He ends up suffering a major gunshot wound to his stomach, and his entrails are hanging out. He believes he's about to die. He's got no issue with that because he's dying with his squad, his brothers in arms, the guys he's been fighting with, even from the Pendulum Wars. So to him, it's an honour to die alongside his men. To which he ends up waking up in hospital, being repaired and mended, and he's chosen to go on a secret mission to start to reclaim the city of Ophira. Of course, if you've played the game, you are aware that Ophira is still a Locust territory, or Locust controlled territory. So of course the mission was unsuccessful. The idea of the story is that the general that sends Shaw and this new squad into Ophira to try and take back the city, he's jealous of Hoffman and his reputation, his fame, his ability to strategize, and just everything about Hoffman he's jealous of. He wants that reputation, he wants that fame, he wants that popularity. He wants to be known as the saviour of humankind. You know, when history looks back 100 years from, you know, the end of the war, he wants his name to be, you know, one of their big heroes that are mentioned. So he comes up with this absolutely terrible plan that he believes is top notch. He sends this team in, and it basically just goes all tits up, which results in a lot of catastrophe. But I've got this planned out. I have the whole beginning, middle, end, the whole fan fiction thing. It's done. You know, I've just got to basically put it from my head onto paper. I don't want to sort of go into it too much because it's quite an interesting story, I think. I mean, it could just be me being biased, but, you know, I'm the only one that knows the story. So, yes, I'm going to be biased. But no, I just don't want, you know, people are interested in it. I don't want to kind of ruin what happens. But yeah, so he's basically the lieutenant, the sergeant who takes control of this new squad of as green as grass gears, other than a couple of them that know what they're doing. So it's bad from the get-go. An easy custom to make. Obviously, having a cog soldier or Kim body with the wrestler's head did result in having to use some modelling around the neck. His head does turn, so I managed to sort of work it so I could turn it. It just meant there was a massive gap at the back, hence why I sort of modelled it. And I mean, from the front you don't really notice. It was just to cover up the gap. So we're seeing from the side. It's not an off-putting thing, but yeah, it's still there. The Gears! So after the release of Gears 4, the licensing for figures was changed from NECA to McFarlane. I don't actually know the reason as to why. I think NECA probably just thought the Gears figures probably just weren't as profitable as they could be, so they maybe sold the line on or just gave up the rights. McFarlane took over and they gave us some of the most terrible Gears figures I've seen. Not so much the detail in the McFarlane figures is awesome, like they are really well detailed. They decided to give us posable statues that had 1 or 2 points of articulation as opposed to fully articulated figures, which was questionable. McFarlane at this point had done, you know, I think they had already released many Halo figures that were extremely posable. So why they decided to go this route, I don't know. It made the figures look stupid. The Marcus one was fine. His pose was literally just him standing, holding his gun. We could do with that, that's fine. The Kate one, she's running on 1 foot, which, you know, on a lot of the figures, her legs would be bending, so she'd be standing at an angle. Yeah, it was just horrible. And I think the same with JD. Dell's wasn't too bad. He was standing still holding the buzzsaw. I had the full set. I've kept my Marcus one the way it was, and I decided that I didn't like the McFarlane Gears 4 figures, so I decided to make my own. So yeah, so this is basically a combination of the two. I had to darken the skin tone because the body is Anya. I mean, she uses Anya's armour, so it makes sense. Painted the legs blue, the boots brown. I mean, she didn't have these kind of legs or trousers, boots or whatever in Gears 4. But yeah, I mean, it's better than nothing, you know. It still looks pretty decent. So this part came from the Gears 4 McFarlane figure. Same as the belt buckles that I took off. The necklace which, if you can see, yeah, I had to cut that out, hollow that out, which took hours. So that was not fun. Yeah, so the only thing is she doesn't have a tattoo. Purely on an artistic style, I don't have the skills. I mean, I practiced it on a bit of paper and it just looked terrible. And I thought it's better to not have it than have it looking bad. That is the only aspect of this figure that I don't like compared to Kate. Yeah, so I like this figure. I think I made this shortly before they announced they were doing Kate for Gears 5. I think it was their Storm did one, so... But again, you know, it's not too bad. I have a articulated Gears 4 version, and I have the winter Gears 5 version as well. Yeah, extremely happy with how this one turned out. JD, on the other hand, paint-wise, he looks great, but yeah, it's a Marcus body, and Marcus being the chunky boy he is, he has a neck and a half, and it just looks stupid. I could carve it down, I suppose, to make it a bit thin, but at the minute, like, his head's held on with blue tack, you know, so it's not... I can always come back and sort it out, but as it stands, it just looks stupid. Look, I mean, at this angle, it doesn't look too bad because you're looking down, so the neck doesn't look too chunky, but when you see it, just like, to me, it looks bizarre. But let me know what you guys think, if it looks bizarre or if it looks okay. I added some more blood to his scratches that he has to make him look a bit more freshly cut. And then it was, yeah, basically just adding the colour palette from the Gears 4 McFarlane figure. Gave him sort of fingerless gloves, so I just painted some flesh tone skin colour. Gave him his walkie-talkie and the Gears 4 packs, so he looks completely different to the Gears 5 ones. And I took off his shoulder pads from the Gears 4 figure and added them on there, just so he doesn't look the same. Next to a Marcus, there's slight differences that you can be, okay, yeah, it's a bit different. Obviously, other than the fact that it's clearly a NECA body. I am working on Del. I haven't actually had the chance to finish the trio yet, but yeah, as soon as I can, I will share the finished version of Del. It's literally just getting time to do him and the parts for him, and remembering that he's actually one that I've got to do. So, poor Del, I keep forgetting about him.